So yesterday I went over the upcoming banner that's going to be hitting the NA side of the game in a couple of days that is going to be bringing back last year's summer characters, and I thought I would actually go ahead and give them all an updated video talking about how good they are, not only in relation to 1 year later, but also do they still hold up on the JP side of the game, because JP is 2 years ahead of us, and the first character we're starting out with is actually the first character to make their debut back, that being Lady Avalon, who, like my man Kenny said, can also double as a stealth DPS if the time is right. But this character has actually held up rather well, not only functionally being an Arts Merlin, but also if you don't have Castoria can kind of be looping support, because she does give you battery, she does give you a massive arts buff for that NP refund and whatnot. So if you're a new player and you're wondering, is this character still good enough? Are they still worth my Saint Quartz? I would definitely tell you yes, and we're going to outline that in today's video. As per usual, if you enjoy having an FGO video in your subscription box every single day, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel, as it's absolutely free and helps me out more than you know. But enough shilling for my own channel, let's start diving into her kit, starting off with her hits. And would you look at that, an arts support has a triple arts deck. The sky is still blue and grass is still green, well, depending on where you live. But obviously this is going to help her out in arts teams, allowing you to consistently hit those arts chains, so everybody's refunding 20% NP every single turn on top of all the battery that all the supports are giving, and the things that she's doing on her own NP and with her own skills. Her NP refund might not be the craziest at only 0.53%, but it really doesn't need to be all that crazy, because again, all of your other major art supports are also rocking a triple arts deck, and your major arts DPSs are rocking 2, if not 3 arts cards themselves, plus you have the arts NPs that they're all going to be rocking, meaning you should always be firing arts chains left, right, and center, giving everybody 20% battery, including herself. So even though her NP refund might be a little bit low, it really doesn't need to be. It's not something you're going to consistently struggle with. There's also a notable fact that she is indeed a Pretender class servant, which is kind of nice. For the longest time, supports in FGO were all relegated to the caster class, meaning if you were ever going up against a rider boss, they could get cooked pretty easily. Now, Lady Avalon still kind of has that problem because Pretenders are really only good against the Knight classes, but it does let you diversify your different classes you're bringing to your teams. And hey, if you're going up against a Saber, Archer, or even a Lancer boss, she might even be able to get a good few licks in herself. Now, it wouldn't be a ZTL video if I didn't mention that she is rocking that 5-hit extra attack, which used to be the gold standard over here on ZTL Industries, but unfortunately, I do think we are in a bit of a recession for the extra attack, and 5 hits might not be good enough. However, if you're not in the know, the extra attack is your composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage. And while I would normally tell you to go for that append skill to make it the omnipotent extra attack, I think a character like this could definitely benefit from their append skill giving them extra starting NP, so you could fire her NP immediately with one of her skills, but we'll get into that in just a second. Let's talk about some of her passive skills, and she is rocking a ton of them. I mean, and these are all pretty dang good. The highlights are Mixed Blood and High Speed Divine Words Bewitching, which respectively allow her to refund 5% NP every single turn, and allows her to start the battle off with 20% of her NP charge, functionally having that append 2 already ready to go, and if you do go for her append 2, she could start off with 40% NP, which is just a little bit nuts. She also has independent manifestation, so the guy at the beginning was not really memeing. You can kind of use her as a DPS. It's not the craziest thing you could be doing. You could definitely be doing better things, but it is something that, I mean, she has a passive 10% critical damage buff. She does have a passive 4% arts buff, and, you know, she does have a charisma to give herself bonus attacks. So if you're really down bad and you really just need to take out any of the Knight class enemies, I guess you could use her for that. Not recommended, but still something funny you can do. I mean, who doesn't like DPS Castoria, DPS Merlin? Let's just throw DPS Lady Avalon onto the pile. That being said, let's start moving into her active skills. Starting off with her first skill, Light Upon That Hand B. This is going to be a targetable skill that gives one of your allies a 50% arts buff for 3 turns, 3k max HP for 3 turns, and 100% critical damage for 1 turn on a low, well, kind of average 6-turn cooldown. This is functionally just the arts version of Merlin's hero creation skill that instead of giving you an arts buff gives you a buster buff, and that skill is still good to this day. The reason that this kind of is maybe a little bit better is that Giving that massive arts buff is not only massively increasing the damage of any arts NPs or any arts cards you're going to be throwing the enemy's way, it is also massively boosting the NP refund of any of your arts cards, and that's why in some of the background gameplay you can see that I just brought a friend Lady Avalon and my own Castoria, which you can inverse if you don't have Castoria, but you do have Lady Avalon. You can get setups working where you can have characters that are capable of looping with only one friend Castoria and your own Lady Avalon, and then just plug suiting in whoever else you want. Whether that be a Paracelsus, or maybe you're lucky enough to have an Asclepius, or maybe you just have a character that loops like an absolute god and you can afford some extra damage with somebody like an Oberon or a Waver. Or maybe you're just really sick nasty with it and you're gonna plug suit in somebody like a Tamamo or something for that big NP damage and another large arts buff. The max HP also does technically function like a heal, because say you're at 11,000 HP, this boosts you to 14,000. Once the skill runs out, you kind of just go back down to your 11,000. So you're kind of just burning HP. That's like this phantom HP over there, so you're not really losing any of your, I guess, main HP if you want to describe it that way. So that's also really nice. And 100% crit damage, I mean, it's 100% crit damage. You're going to be absolutely sniping people into oblivion. Unfortunately, it is only for one turn, so you do need to kind of time this correctly if you are going for crit damage. But it's not like that's a make or break for Lady Avalon. If you do waste the critical damage buff because you timed it incorrectly, she's still doing a plethora of really nasty things. Like her second skill, Blooming Flower of Summer Nights D. This is kind of crazy. It gives the entire party 20% attack for 3 turns, gives the entire party 20% NP gauge, and overcharges the party's NP by 1 stage for 1 time for 3 turns on, again, another 6-turn cooldown. Now attack, that's pretty easy. You're doing more damage, that should be really obvious. 20% battery, that's really good. That's really solid. Everybody in the arts team wants to be firing their NP as quickly and as often as possible. Giving everybody a 20% battery is always going to be good, but the thing that really pushes this over the edge and started the debate as to whether or not this was a power-crept Merlin is overcharging the party's NP stage. To break it down, every single art support you're going to be bringing has a ridiculous effect on the overcharge for their NP. Lady Avalon is probably one of the more tame ones, since she'll just be giving you more stars every single turn on her NP, but that's already really good because the arts card natively does not gen stars, so giving more stars to your arts characters that they don't natively provide for themselves is already going to be good. Castoria, who you can just bring a friend if you already have Lady Avalon, gives you more solemn defense, the best defensive effect in the game. Tamamo even gives your entire party more NP, and considering that she already wants to go at the end of an NP chain, means that she's going to be overclocking the entire party's NP refund to a ridiculous degree. That's not also to mention that a lot of your DPS characters, for their overcharge effect, are either stacking some kind of arts, NP damage, or power mod, so they're going to be doing more damage as well. It's just a really nasty effect that she has. And unlike some other skills that maybe are a little bit more balanced because you can only target somebody to give them the overcharge, or maybe for someone like Morgan, it's relegated to just being only on her NP. For her, she can just kind of slap this out there whenever you want, give it to everybody, and it's just ridiculous. There is a lot of very disgusting things you can get going with this second skill. But we're not done yet. We go over to his third skill, Succubus Ridge EX. It gives the entire party invincibility for 1 turn, so it's functionally just Merlin's illusion skill. But instead of now giving you crit damage, because Merlin will get buffed in the future and, you know, he has an extra battery and crit damage. We'll talk about that whenever we get it. But hers has kind of both a defensive effect and an ability to let her auto-fire her NP immediately as soon as she gets into the battle. So depending on how many enemies are present whenever you fire this skill, she gets 20% for each. So if there are 3 enemies, this is a self 60% battery. Even if there's only 1 enemy, this is still protecting your entire party for 1 turn and giving her another 20% battery on top of the 20% battery she has for the party on her second skill, and the fact that she natively starts with 20% because of her passives. And then it also just has this recursive effect that she'll just reduce all enemies' NP gauge by 1. So it's kind of like an NP drain, but for the entire enemy party, which is just kind of ridiculous, right? So not only are you protecting your characters, but then you're also saying, I'm not going to get NP'd next turn. You know what? I don't want you to fire your NP, because your NP might have some nasty effect like removing defensive buffs or pierce invincibility. I don't want to deal with all that. So it's almost like a guaranteed way to make sure your party makes it to the next turn. All in all, these skills make a very effective support servant because she has party survivability, she's self-sufficient in getting her own NP, which is a crazy support NP that we'll get into in just a second, but then she's giving the entire party that nice attack, the overcharge, which I just outlined can do some really ridiculous things, and then she's turning one of your characters into a looping damaging god with her first skill. But let's talk about her NP, because if she did not have a good NP, it wouldn't matter if she could auto-fire it on turn 1, but thankfully her NP is literally just Merlin's NP with a couple of little quirks to it. But they are very, very similar, because she is going to be giving the entire party 3k max HP, 5% NP gauge, both for 3 turns, and then 5 stars every turn for 5 turns depending on overcharge level. But remember, she's already going to be starting at least overcharge 1, so for that first NP that you fire, it's going to be 10 stars every turn for 5 turns. Now the interesting thing is that they did try to give you an incentive to try and go for more copies of this character. I don't think that's necessary, but if you ever find yourself like an NP5 Lady Avalon, you are getting 5k max HP and 10% NP every single turn for 3 turns. Mind you, that means that she's refunding 15% because of her passive skill, and God forbid you give her like a Prisma Cosmos or something, God forbid that's max limit broken, that is 25% NP every single turn. Things can get really nasty really fast. Now the way that I'm assuming they tried to balance her over OG Merlin is that because OG Merlin is supposed to be helping out Buster teams and they're theoretically not supposed to be firing their NPs as often, all of his buffs are natively for 5 turns, whereas hers are for 3 turns, so it's not as easy to get a double stack of the NP going. But remember, these are arts characters. They're consistently doing arch chains. Everybody is sharing NP with each other. I mean, she's got 20% battery for everybody. She's got at least a 20% battery on her 3rd skill, and she's refunding NP every single turn, and Castoria gives 30% to everybody. God forbid one of your arts DPSs also gives gauge to everybody. And so even though they tried to go about trying to balance this NP a little bit, it can still get really nasty really quickly. And even her bond CE is really strong, which might not be the most relevant depending on how they decide to do extra 2 when it comes to Grand Servants, but it's just free 10% arts and 15% crit damage while she exists on the field. And the thing for a lot of these supports is that sometimes when you're going into boss fights, you can just slap their bond CE onto them. You don't need to make them your grand character. For instance, I will still use Castoria's bond CE whenever I'm going into a boss fight, because it's just free NP refund and free damage. Same thing for Lady Avalon, or even an OG Merlin, a waiver even. A lot of the supports have really strong bond CEs that are really worth bringing over something like, say, a drop rate CE, or maybe even one of those like bond increases or QP increases, because you might need that little bit of extra damage to help the fight go a little bit easier in your favor, and hers is no exception. Free crit damage and free arts damage is always going to be good. So the obvious question is this character worth rolling for? And it's a resounding yes. This character is insanely good. They're ridiculously good, and a fine addition to any account that has any halfway decent arts characters. But should you roll for this character? That's the other question. Because even though I do believe this character is an absolute must summon, they are a godsend for any account, it's not like you do need them, and let me explain. Say if you already have Castoria on your account, you're probably still going to be fine when it comes to things like challenge quests and being able to loop all over the place. Lady Avalon is just a really nice addition and an extra flex opportunity you have when making those arch teams, especially in some challenge quests where you're not allowed to bring duplicates of the same servant. Say, for instance, like all of the different festivals we have, like Tesla Fest and Guild Fest, where you're not allowed to bring duplicate characters. That's the kind of limit to power you're able to get. That's where people like Lady Avalon and even OG Merlin can really shine, because they're another really good support for their associated card type that is not the same name as Koyenskaya or Castoria. I would say where this character gets more tantalizing is if you do not have your own Castoria, but you are rocking some really strong arts characters on your account, and you want to be able to loop with them, because Lady Avalon can definitely help you out with that. The odd thing though is that Castoria should be getting a rate up later on this year, I believe it's like the 3,000 day campaign where her and Morgan are going to be getting a raid up at the same time. And so if you're wanting the best art support, your best thing to do would be to save for that Castoria banner. But if you're someone that just didn't summon on Anniversary, or you didn't really summon on the summer banners, you weren't really feeling them, or you saved up a whole lot of Saint Quartz and you just have extra laying around, because unlike me, you didn't get booty blasted on these banners, then you could definitely afford to throw some Saint Quartz Lady Avalon's way. Now, I'm also going to be covering Ibuki and Summer Scotty in the following days as well, kind of weaving around the JP Anniversary stuff that's also going to be coming out, so kind of be patient with me on that one. JP's about to get real crazy real quick. But I will say, in general, these 3 characters that are coming back all will fit a really good niche for whatever you need on your account. If you need a art support or just someone that's really good in CQs, you go for Lady Avalon. If you're missing any of the quick supports, then Ruler Scotty's your go-to. And if you just don't have a good arts character on your account, Ibuki's banner is really strong because it has Ibuki as a AoE arts character that's really strong, and the 4-star is Eris, who's a really strong single target arts character. If you are looking at your own account and you're not really sure who to pull for or whether or not you should roll or not, we do have a Discord link down in the description down below that if you want to go into the FGO chat and be like, hey guys, I have these characters, who should I roll on? By all means, use those resources. You can also drop a comment down in the comment section down below, and if I don't get to it, then one of our many helpful people will probably also be able to help you out there. And then the once in a blue moon when I do decide to stream, if I am streaming, you can go ahead and just be like, ZTL, should I summon for this character? And I'll be like, what do you got? That being said, though, I think I've yapped enough about how good this character is. Let me know in the comment section down below if you are looking forward to this character coming out in the next couple of days over here on the NA side of things, and if you're going to be rolling or not, or just drop your best run that you've had with Lady Avalon and how helpful she's been for you in your account. Maybe that'll be the incentive somebody else needs to go ahead and pull on this character. I mean, if nothing else, she is really cute. And hey, as she says, she's everybody's little sister. Who does not want to have little brother in their account? With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.